I've spent more than 40 years hearing the same question, doctor. How many eggs can I eat a month without clogging my veins? And I always saw the fear in the eyes of the questioner, a fear that was planted very competently, a fear that made you throw away the most nutritious part of the egg, that made you swap the breakfast egg for a bread with margarine, that made you believe that the cholesterol in food was your biggest enemy. And today I'm going to reveal something that changes everything. Pay attention to this detail, because it's the key to everything. Your liver, this organ that works in silence while you sleep, produces every single day something around 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of cholesterol. This is equivalent to eating 6, 7, even 8 whole eggs just in your body's natural production. And if you eat an egg and your cholesterol goes up, the problem was never inside the eggshell. The problem is in another silent gear that almost no one explains, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. While many people still count eggs per month for fear of a heart attack, science has already turned the page decades ago. And what the evidence points to is so surprising that when I explain it in the office, the person stands still, in silence, reprocessing everything they believed for 30, 40 years. And the worst thing is that this fear of the egg has made room for a silent damage. A damage that advances inside your vessels, inside your brain, while you are distracted counting eggs. And that is what we are going to talk about now, from beginning to end, calmly, because this subject deserves more than the 15 minutes of a rushed consultation. Think of the dimension of what has happened in the last 5 decades, a food that has sustained generations, that has saved entire families from malnutrition, that fed your grandparents, your parents. You in childhood, you were suddenly turned into a villain, and the housewife who fried eggs for her children began to feel guilty. The man who ate his hard-boiled egg for breakfast was convinced to exchange it for a sugary cereal that said 0 cholesterol in the box. And that's when things really started to go wrong. Because while you were worried about the cholesterol in the egg, a flood of refined vegetable oils, white flours, sugars hidden in foods that dressed up as healthy came onto your plate. And this inflammatory combo was, little by little, hurting the inner wall of your arteries, creating the perfect environment for oxidized cholesterol to settle. And what I'm calling the perfect environment is not an abstract force. It's a real chemical process that happens inside you. Chronic inflammation wears down the endothelium, that layer that lines your vessels from the inside. And this wear and tear is like someone sanding the wall of a pipe, making it rough, and in that roughness, the particles of oxidized fat stick together. And the body sends defense cells to the site, and these cells swallow the fat and form a plaque. And this plaque grows year after year, silently, without showing symptoms, and when it ruptures, it can cause a heart attack or a stroke. And the question I want to plant in your mind now is, what caused the roughness in the pipe? What caused the inflammation that started the whole process? Was it the egg that your grandmother ate? Or was it the heated soybean oil? Was it the margarine? Was it the white flour bread? Was it the sugar hidden in everything? And this question will stay open in your mind, as I reveal layer by layer what really happens. And I promise you, 2 concrete deliveries by the end of this conversation. First, I'll give you a complete understanding about how many eggs a day most people can safely eat, but not a loose number, a dumb number that fits everyone. I'll give you the criteria for you to adjust this number to your life, to your age, to your state of health, and according to me, I will reveal to you the mistake of preparation and combination that nullifies most of the benefits of the egg and that most people make tomorrow morning without the slightest awareness, and whoever leaves this video before the end will continue to make this mistake. You will continue to think that eggs are bad because they are preparing the way they spoil, and you will continue to be afraid of a food that could be protecting your heart and brain. And this fear, my friends, was not planted by chance. There is a huge industry that makes billions selling products that replace eggs, selling breakfast cereals, selling margarine, selling vegetable oils, selling cholesterol-lowering drugs that you only need to take because your body is inflamed because of these same industrialized products. And I'm not a conspiracy theory. I am a clinician who observes, who reads the exams, who listens to the stories, and the story that repeats itself is always the same. The person takes out the egg, puts the industrialized product in its place, it gets worse, and the blame goes to genetics, it goes to age, it goes to cholesterol, but never to the change she made. And it's this gear that I want to dismantle with you now, piece by piece, starting with what actually happens inside your body when you eat a whole egg. Now, I want you to imagine the inner wall of one of your arteries, a smooth layer called the endothelium, which is like a velvet carpet covering the inside of the vessels. When this carpet is intact, the blood slides. The cholesterol particles pass right through. Nothing sticks. But when you attack this carpet day after day with white flour, with sugar, with vegetable oils heated to high temperatures, with fried foods, with ultra-processed foods, with chronic stress, with sleepless nights, this carpet becomes rough. Micro cracks appear, and it is in these cracks that the particles of oxidized cholesterol infiltrate. And then the immune system enters the scene, sends defense cells to the site, a plaque is formed, and this plaque grows in silence for years, decades. And here's what almost no one explains. Cholesterol is not a killer loose in the bloodstream looking for an artery to clog. It's a substance that your body manufactures because it needs it to build the membrane of every cell. The walls that surround each of the trillions of cells in your body are made of cholesterol and phospholipids. And without cholesterol, the cells lose their structure. They lose the right rigidity. They are too fragile. Cholesterol is the scaffold of cell architecture. And in addition, it is the raw material to produce all your hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol. They are all manufactured from cholesterol. And without cholesterol, your hormones plummet. Your energy disappears, your libido disappears, your mood fluctuates, and there's more. Cholesterol is essential to isolate your nerves, that layer called the myelin sheath that lines the neurons and allows electrical impulses to travel at speed. Without enough cholesterol, this layer deteriorates. The nerve signals are slow, and you feel it as tingling, as weakness, as difficulty in reasoning. And then there is vitamin D, which is manufactured in your skin when the sun touches you. And the raw material for this manufacture is cholesterol. So cholesterol is so essential that without it, life simply does not exist, and your body knows it, so it manufactures it all the time. And when you eat less cholesterol in the diet, the liver increases production, and when you eat more, the liver reduces. And this self-regulation system is so elegant that it is poetic. But it has a weak point. It breaks down when the liver is sick, and what makes the liver sick is not the natural fat in the egg. It's the fructose in orange juice, it's the white flour in bread, it's the excess of omega-6 oils, it's the lack of nutrients that the liver needs to export fat, and one of those most critical nutrients, called choline, is precisely in the yolk of the egg that you've been told to throw away. And here we come to the first big revelation. The whole egg contains everything needed to build a life. It is the most complete nutritional package that exists in nature. A single yolk contains about 150 milligrams of choline, and choline is a substance that is in a weird limbo. It is not a vitamin, it is not a mineral, but it is so essential that without it, your liver cannot export fat, and the fat gets trapped inside the liver cells, and the liver becomes pale, enlarged, fatty. And this is called hepatic steatosis, fatty liver, a condition that affects almost half of the population over 50 years of age, and that most discover by chance in a routine ultrasound. And when the liver gets fatty, it loses the ability to regulate cholesterol. It loses the ability to filter toxins. It loses the ability to control blood sugar. And then it triggers a cascade of problems. Diabetes, hypertension, abdominal obesity, systemic inflammation. And the trigger of this cascade can simply be the lack of choline. And the choline is in the yolk that you throw away. And you throw it away because someone told you that the yolk has cholesterol and that cholesterol clogs arteries, and this information is wrong at the root. Because what clogs the artery is not the cholesterol you eat, it is the inflammatory process that oxidizes the cholesterol and deposits it in the wall of the vessel. And the egg, with its choline, its antioxidants, its monounsaturated fats, its phospholipids, helps fight that inflammation, not cause it. And for you to understand the depth of this, I'm going to describe what happens to choline after you swallow the yolk. It's absorbed in the small intestine. It falls into the portal vein. It goes straight to the liver. And inside it activates a process called the export of very low-density lipoproteins, which are the VLDL. And these VLDL are the trucks that carry the fat out of the liver. Without enough choline, these trucks do not leave the garage. The fat accumulates, and the liver becomes intoxicated. And this intoxicated liver can no longer regulate the cholesterol in the blood. So the cholesterol rises, and the blame goes to the egg that the person does not eat. And the solution they give is to cut the egg even more, and the liver gets even worse. And the dose of the medicine increases, and the cycle perpetuates itself. And this is what I call informational iatrogenesis, a damage caused by wrong information. And it is this damage that I am trying to undo here. I remember a patient, Mrs. Lords, 67 years old, who arrived at the office with a bag full of boxes of medicine, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, fatty liver, newly diagnosed diabetes, and she said to me, "Doctor, I do everything right. I don't eat eggs. I don't eat red meat. I just eat whole wheat bread with light margarine for breakfast." And when she said light margarine, I felt a tightness in my chest, because I knew that there was the root of the problem, and I asked her to describe exactly what she ate during the day, and she told me that she woke up early, spread margarine on wholemeal bread, drank a glass of natural orange juice that she squeezed herself, thinking that was the height of her health, and for lunch it was white rice, beans, boiled vegetables, and a grilled chicken fillet. And in the afternoon she ate a cereal bar that said it was rich in fiber on the package, and at dinner it was crackers with tea. And she genuinely believed she was taking care of herself, that she was doing everything as she was supposed to. And she looked at me with teary eyes and asked, "Doctor, so why am I sick? Why my cholesterol doesn't go down? Why am I getting more and more tired?" And that's when I explained to her, "Mrs. Lords, you took out the egg that protects and put in place a set of foods that inflame your endothelium all day long. Wholemeal bread in the package is flour with caramel coloring and a pinch of fiber. Margarine is a block of chemically altered fat that your body does not recognize. Natural orange juice turns into a flood of fructose that your liver turns into fat. The cereal bar is sugar disguised with fruit aroma, and the cracker at night keeps your insulin elevated while you sleep. And the result of this combo is an overworked liver that can no longer regulate cholesterol, and an exhausted pancreas that can no longer control sugar, and an intoxicated brain that slowly loses clarity." And Mrs. Lords was silent, and I saw on her face the moment when the penny dropped, and she told me, "Doctor, I spent 30 years doing this. 30 years. And that's when I proposed a simple change to her, Mrs. Lords. You are going to eat eggs again, the whole egg with the yolk, preferably boiled or stirred over low heat with a drizzle of olive oil, and will replace the wholemeal bread in the packet with a slice of boiled sweet potato, and will replace the orange juice with lemon water, and will replace the margarine with olive oil or butter, and will exchange the evening cookie for 2 boiled eggs or a piece of white cheese." And she agreed, and 3 months later she came back, and her exam showed a significant reduction in bad cholesterol, an increase in good cholesterol. Triglycerides plummeted, the liver on ultrasound was less fatty, and she had lost 5 kilos without going on a restrictive diet. And the most beautiful thing was the sparkle in her eye. A sparkle that was not there at the first appointment. A glow of someone who has regained hope and autonomy. And she said to me, "Doctor, I feel alive again." And this phrase, "I feel alive again," sums up everything I want for each person who is listening to me now. And I tell the story of Mrs. Lords because she is the story of millions of people. People who wake up tired, who look in the mirror and don't recognize themselves, who forget names, who lose their keys, who feel a fog in their minds that didn't exist before, who attribute everything to age and accept it as inevitable. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. That much of what you attribute to aging can be nutrient deficiencies, silent chronic inflammation, and an overworked liver that isn't doing its job. And the solution can start with a simple gesture tomorrow morning, bringing the egg back the right way. And now we're going to get into a field that explains why the yolk is the true protector of the liver. And I want you to understand something that's going to forever change the way you look at cholesterol. The cholesterol that's in your blood doesn't come from the egg that you ate today, for the most part. Something like 70 to 80%. It was manufactured by your own liver during the night while you were sleeping, and the liver doesn't manufacture cholesterol for nothing. It manufactures it because your body needs it, because each cell is asking for raw material to renew itself, because the glands need to manufacture hormones, because the nerves need to maintain their insulating cover, and the liver meets these requests with the nocturnal production of cholesterol. And if you eat less cholesterol at dinner, the liver manufactures more during the night, and if you eat more, it manufactures less. And this dance is regulated by an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase, and this enzyme is the conductor of the orchestra. And what deregulates this enzyme is not the fat in the egg, it is chronically elevated insulin, it is inflammation, it is the accumulation of fat within the liver itself. And as the liver accumulates fat, it accumulates when it receives more fructose than it can process. And fructose is a type of sugar that is in fruit juice, table sugar, corn syrup from soft drinks and processed foods. And fructose goes straight to the liver, and the liver transforms the excess into fat. And this fat accumulates in the liver cells, and then the liver becomes fat, and a fatty liver can no longer regulate the enzyme HMG-CoA reductase, and the production of cholesterol is uncontrolled, and cholesterol goes up, 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 and the blame goes to the egg yolk, which doesn't even have fructose. And this inversion of blame is one of the greatest injustices of modern medicine. And choline, which is in the yolk, is precisely the nutrient that helps the liver to export fat. Choline is a lipotropic, that is, a substance that prevents the accumulation of fat in the liver. And when you throw the yolk away, you are depriving your liver of the nutrient it needs most to heal itself, and he is keeping the orange juice that is intoxicating him for breakfast. And this is the height of nutritional tragedy. I had a patient, Mr. Antonio, 72 years old, who came with an exam showing grade 2 fatty liver, and he was a thin man, which is surprising because people think that fatty liver is only for fat, and it is not. Fatty liver can affect thin people who eat a lot of flour and a lot of sugar. And Mr. Antonio was a classic case. He didn't drink, he didn't eat fried food, and he was proud to eat only egg whites for breakfast. And when I investigated his diet, I found a huge consumption of natural grape juice, which he drank thinking it was antioxidant, wholemeal bread in a package, cereal bars, of cassava starch biscuits, and 0 egg yolks, 0 choline. And he was also taking a cholesterol medication, and the cholesterol did not go down, and the liver was getting worse. And then I proposed an exchange. Mr. Antonio, let's suspend the grape juice, let's suspend the bread, let's bring the yolk back, 3 whole eggs a day, cooked or poached, and let's see what happens. And he agreed, and 3 months later, his liver on the ultrasound was visibly less fatty, and the bad cholesterol dropped, and the good cholesterol went up. And he told me, "Doctor, I spent 20 years eating only egg whites, and my liver got worse. And in 3 months eating the yolk, it got better. How can that?" And the answer is in the choline. It's in the phospholipids. It's in the removal of the food that was intoxicating his liver, and it's in the restoration of an essential nutrient that he had cut out of fear. And here's what almost no one explains. Fatty liver is a silent epidemic. It affects somewhere around 30 to 40% of the adult population, and most don't know they have it. And fatty liver is the gateway to metabolic syndrome, which is a combo of high blood pressure, altered cholesterol, diabetes, and abdominal obesity. And this metabolic syndrome is the main risk factor for heart attack and stroke. And the treatment of metabolic syndrome necessarily involves restoring liver health. And the choline in the egg yolk is one of the most powerful tools for this, and yet they convinced you to throw the yolk away. And every time you throw away a yolk, you are throwing away a natural remedy that your liver is begging to receive. Now we are going to enter a territory that exposes the most common mistake that nullifies the benefit of the egg. And I want you to pay close attention to this detail because it is the watershed between who gets better and who gets worse. And this mistake is in the heat. It is in the company. It is in the repetition of an automatic gesture that you make every day without questioning. And this gesture is to fry the egg in vegetable oil until the edge is brown and crispy. That burnt edge that so many people love. That fried egg with the hard yolk and the edges scorched is an oxysterol bomb. And I'll explain what oxysterols are. They are products of the oxidation of cholesterol when it is subjected to high temperatures, and these oxysterols are toxic molecules that hurt the endothelium, that inflame the walls of the arteries, that infiltrate the plaques and make them unstable, and an unstable plaque can rupture and cause a heart attack. So it's not the cholesterol in the egg that causes the problem. It's the cholesterol in the egg oxidized by excessive heat and the company of a vegetable oil that also oxidizes. And the vegetable oils I'm talking about are soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, sunflower oil. These oils are rich in fats called omega-6, which are essential in small amounts. The body needs them, but in excess they become an inflammatory poison. And the problem is not just the excess. It's heating when you heat these oils to high temperatures. Like in a frying pan to fry an egg, the fats oxidize and generate toxic compounds called aldehydes, which are highly reactive, which attack the walls of your arteries, which damage the DNA of your cells, which accelerate aging, and these aldehydes are volatile. They rise with the smoke from frying, and you inhale, and they enter through the breath and go into the blood, and the damage is twofold, by what you eat and by what you breathe. And this happens every single day in the kitchen of millions of Brazilians, the eggs sizzling in soybean oil, the smoke rising, the oxysterols forming in the yolk, the aldehydes entering the air, and the person sitting down to eat thinking that he is nourishing himself when in fact he is slowly intoxicating himself. I want to describe to you what happens inside an artery when these aldehydes and oxysterols enter the circulation. Imagine that the artery wall is like a thin and delicate tissue, and the aldehydes are like small chemical needles that poke this tissue, generating microcracks. And the body, to defend itself, sends cholesterol to plug these cracks. And then the cholesterol that was sent to fix the damage is accused of being the cause of the damage, and the real aggressor. The aldehyde coming from the heated oil is still there, invisible, not measured in routine exams, not mentioned in oil advertisements. And this inversion of blame is so perverse that I consider it one of the biggest failures of public health communication in recent decades. And that's why I'm telling you this so emphatically, so you'll never look at a frying pan of vegetable oil bubbling the same way again. I had a patient, Mr. Francisco, 81 years old, a gentleman who smoked for 40 years, stopped but got pulmonary emphysema, and he ate fried eggs every single day, fried in margarine, with a hard yolk and brown edges, and his cholesterol was high, and his blood pressure was high, and he was always inflamed. And his wife told me that he didn't let go of the fried egg at all, that it was his pleasure, and I understood, and I didn't tell him to stop eating eggs. I taught him the poached egg, that hard-boiled egg without shell in water with a little vinegar, and I showed him that it could be seasoned with olive oil, with oregano, with a pinch of salt. And he was a little suspicious, but he accepted to try, and at first he was surprised. He missed the crunchiness, but after 2 weeks he started to like it, and 3 months later his blood pressure was more controlled, the inflammation measured in the blood test had dropped, and the bad cholesterol reduced. And he told me, "Doctor, I've eaten eggs all my life, and only now I've learned how to eat." And this phrase is the synthesis of what I want to teach here. Most people eat eggs their whole lives and have never learned to eat the right way, and the system doesn't teach. The 15-minute consultation doesn't have time to teach. The industry doesn't want to teach because it sells the oil, sells the margarine, sells the medicine, and so you keep spinning on a wheel that grinds your health and your money. And the solution for preparation is simpler than you think. Use stable fats that do not oxidize easily when heated. Use butter, use lard, use coconut oil, use olive oil over low heat. And if you are going to make scrambled egg, do it over low heat, stirring constantly without letting the edge dry out. And if you are going to make fried egg, do it with the soft yolk, over low heat, with a lid on top to cook evenly without burning the base. And whenever possible, prefer boiled egg, poached egg, steamed egg, which preserve nutrients and do not generate oxysterols or aldehydes. And this simple change, repeated every day, it can have a greater impact on your cardiovascular health than many medications, because chronic low-grade inflammation is the fertile soil where the world's deadliest diseases grow. And reducing that inflammation is the smartest strategy you can adopt to age with dignity. And now we are going to enter a cycle of revelations that deals with the company of the egg on the plate. Because there is a silent combination that happens in millions of Brazilian breakfasts, and that is canceling the benefits of the egg and creating an inflammatory environment inside your arteries without you realizing it. And this combination is the egg with white flour and sugar. And I'm not talking about French bread that you already know is not ideal. I'm talking about something that dresses up healthy, and that is present on the table of those who believe they are taking care of themselves. Wholemeal bread, wholemeal biscuit, wholemeal toast, natural orange juice, the fruit beaten in a blender. And when you put these foods in the same stomach as the egg, a chemical reaction called glycation takes place. And glycation is a process that deserves all your attention, because it is one of the main accelerators of aging. Glycation happens when a sugar molecule sticks to a protein or fat without the help of an enzyme. It is a spontaneous, unwanted chemical reaction which forms substances called advanced glycation end products, and these products are highly inflammatory. They harden the arteries, they accelerate skin aging, they impair memory, they intoxicate the kidneys, they damage the joints, and the egg, which is a packet of proteins and noble fats, if ingested together with a load of sugar or refined flour, undergoes this glycation process inside your body. The proteins in the egg stick to the sugar in the bread or juice, form these toxic compounds, and part of the egg's beneficial potential is nullified, and worse, inflammatory compounds are generated that will hurt your endothelium. And the big problem is that wheat flour, even wholemeal meal, turns into blood sugar very quickly. Wholemeal supermarket bread, the one that lasts 20 days without mold, is made with refined flour mixed with bran and caramel coloring to look wholemeal. And when you eat this bread, digestion turns starch into glucose quickly, and the glucose goes up in the blood, and the insulin goes up to control it, and then the glycation process begins, and the natural orange juice, which seems so innocent, is a liquid fructose bomb, because to make a glass of juice you use 4 or 5 oranges, and the fiber that held the absorption of sugar was discarded in the bagasse. So the fructose quickly enters the blood, goes straight to the liver, and the liver turns the excess into fat, and that accumulated fat inflames the liver, and the inflamed liver dysregulates cholesterol, and the cycle starts again. I attended a lady, Mrs. Fatima, 58 years old, who had recently diagnosed type 2 diabetes, and she told me that her breakfast was 2 scrambled eggs with a drizzle of olive oil, a whole wheat bread with light cottage cheese, and a glass of natural orange juice, and she firmly believed that this was a balanced breakfast, healthy, who takes care of themselves, and when I showed her that orange juice contained the sugar of 5 oranges without the fiber, and that all that fructose went straight to the liver to overload it, and that the whole grain bread in the package turned into blood sugar as fast as white bread, and that the light cottage cheese was a product full of modified starch and chemical additives, and that all this together generated a glucose spike and a glycation process that nullified the benefits of the egg. She was silent, processing, and then told me, so I was doing everything wrong, thinking I was doing it right. And this is the cruelest betrayal. You believe you are on the right path, follow the recommendations you have heard all your life, and the result is an inflamed body, an exhausted pancreas, an intoxicated brain, and Mrs. Fatima agreed to do an experiment. She exchanged wholemeal bread for a slice of boiled sweet potato, exchanged orange juice for whole oranges, eating the bagasse, or for water with lemon, and exchanged light cottage cheese for mashed avocado, and kept the 2 eggs scrambled with olive oil, and in 4 weeks her fasting glucose dropped 20 points. And she called me crying, "Doctor, I did it. I thought I would never be able to control sugar without medicine. And this is not a miracle. It is physiology. It is giving the body the right food in the right combination, in the right preparation, and the egg was there all the time, available, cheap, nutritious, but it was being sabotaged by the wrong company." And here's what almost no one explains. Glycation doesn't just happen with sugar. It also happens with foods you can't even imagine. French fries, burnt toast, grilled meat, until it forms that black shell. All of this generates advanced glycation products, and these products accumulate in the body over the years, and are associated with cataracts, Alzheimer's, heart attack, kidney failure, and the worst thing is that no one talks about it. No one measures it in routine exams. No one warns you that the burnt toast every morning is slowly intoxicating your arteries, and the egg, when prepared gently, without burning, without frying in vegetable oil, without sugary company, is one of the foods that contribute the least to glycation because it has very low sugar content and its fats are stable when not overheated. Then once again the egg is an ally, not an enemy. And once again you have been told to blame the wrong victim. And now that you understand the importance of the yolk, understand the error of excessive heat and vegetable oils, understand the danger of combining it with flours and sugars, we are going to move on to a territory that will surprise even those who already study this subject, because there is a component of the egg that has a direct impact on your brain, in your memory, in your ability to remember names, to feel present in conversations, to pull that word that is on the tip of your tongue, and that component is choline again, but now acting in a completely different system, the central nervous system. And I'm going to describe to you what happens inside your head when you eat an egg yolk. Choline is absorbed in the gut. It falls into the bloodstream, and in the brain there is a protective barrier called the blood-brain barrier, which is like a safety filter that only lets through what the brain needs. And choline has a free pass to cross that barrier, and inside the brain it's transformed into acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is a chemical messenger, a neurotransmitter, that participates in functions that are dear to anyone over 50. The formation of new memories, concentration, focus, brain plasticity, which is your brain's ability to adapt, to learn new things, to create new pathways between neurons. And without enough choline, the production of acetylcholine drops. And when acetylcholine drops, you start to feel those blanks in your mind, that difficulty pulling a word, that forgetfulness of where you put the keys, that feeling that the actor's name is on the tip of your tongue but it doesn't come out, and you attribute it to age, to natural aging. And in part it is, but in part it may simply be a deficiency of a specific nutrient that is in the yolk of the egg that you stopped eating. And acetylcholine is not only important for memory, it is also the neurotransmitter that connects the brain to the muscles. It is the one that transmits the command for the muscle to contract, and without enough acetylcholine the muscles become weaker, motor coordination worsens, and this is particularly relevant for those who are aging because the loss of muscle mass, called sarcopenia, it is one of the main causes of frailty in old age, falls, fractures, loss of autonomy. And choline participates in the maintenance of the motor plate, which is the connection between the nerve and the muscle. So when you eat the egg yolk, you are nourishing not only your brain, but also your muscles, your strength, your ability to climb a ladder, to carry a bag, to get up from your chair without help. And choline still has one more brain function that few people know about. It is a component of the myelin sheath. That layer of fat that covers neurons like an electric wire is coated with plastic, and this layer allows nerve impulses to travel at speed. Without enough myelin, conduction is slow, signals are lost, and you feel it as slow thinking, as difficulty following a faster conversation, as that feeling that the world is moving faster than you. And the degradation of myelin is associated with neurodegenerative diseases, cognitive decline, and the good news is that the choline in the egg yolk is one of the best sources for the maintenance of myelin, and that's all the more reason for you to look at the egg with respect and gratitude. I remember a patient, Mrs. Regina, 69 years old, who came complaining from memory, saying that she was afraid that she was starting a process of dementia. She forgot where she parked her car, forgot appointments. Sometimes she didn't recognize people she hadn't seen for some time, and she was terrified, and she ate very well. She did everything exactly according to the instructions she received, and when I investigated her diet, she ate only egg whites because her cardiologist told her to. And her breakfast was scrambled egg whites with whole wheat bread and green tea, and she was severely deficient in choline. And I asked her to introduce the yolk, 3 yolks a day, preferably free-range eggs, and adjust the combinations, and in 6 weeks she reported that the mental fog had subsided, that she was faster in conversations, that she stopped forgetting where to put the keys, and her husband confirmed it, said that she was more alive, more present, and this is not a miracle. It is to provide the brain with the raw material it needs to function, and the raw material was in the yolk that they told it to throw away, and Mrs. Regina told me a phrase that I have never forgotten, Doctor. I spent years afraid of losing my memory, and the solution was in my refrigerator all the time. I just didn't know. And in addition to choline, egg yolk contains 2 antioxidants that are crucial for the brain, lutein and zeaxanthin, which are best known for protecting the eyes, but which also accumulate in brain tissue, and there they act as protectors against oxidative stress, which is the wear and tear caused by free radicals. And the brain is an organ that consumes a lot of oxygen and is very susceptible to oxidative damage. And with age, the concentration of these antioxidants in the brain decreases. And this decrease is associated with worse cognitive performance. And egg yolk is one of the most bioavailable sources of lutein and zeaxanthin. That is, the body absorbs and uses these nutrients very well when they come from the yolk, better than when they come from vegetables because the fat in the yolk works as a transport vehicle. And this is another pearl that you throw in the trash when you discard the yolk. And I want you to think about it fondly. Every time you throw away a yolk, you're depriving your brain of choline for memory, of lutein and zeaxanthin for antioxidant protection, of phospholipids for the myelin sheath, of vitamin B12 for the nerves, of vitamin D for mood, and you're keeping on your plate the foods that actually ignite, that really oxidize, that really accelerate brain aging. And this exchange is so disadvantageous that it is tragic, and the food industry is counting on this, counting on its fear of cholesterol to sell products that say 0 cholesterol on the packaging, but that are much more harmful to your brain than a dozen eggs would ever be. And now we're going to get into a cycle of revelations that seems domestic. It seems trivial, but that has a profound impact on the amount of nutrients that actually get into your bloodstream. And that cycle is about how you store and choose the egg. And I know you must be thinking, Doctor, what does the refrigerator door have to do with cholesterol? And the answer is, it has everything to do with it, Because the refrigerator door is the place that suffers the most temperature variation. Every time you open the refrigerator, the door receives the hot air from the environment. And this constant oscillation, up and down, deteriorates the eggshell, which is porous, full of micropores that you don't see with the naked eye. And through these micropores, bacteria enter and oxygen enters, and oxygen oxidizes the nutrients inside the egg, oxidizes fats, degrades antioxidants, reduces the potency of choline, and an oxidized egg, even before it is cooked, arrives on your plate with damaged phospholipids, with reduced gluten, with fats in the process of rancidity, and you eat thinking that you are receiving all the benefits that I have described, but part of them have already been lost inside your own refrigerator. And the right place to store the egg is on the middle shelf, in the most stable part of the refrigerator, where the temperature fluctuates less, and preferably in the original cardboard packaging, because the cardboard protects from light and helps maintain the ideal humidity, and with the thinner tip down, because this keeps the yolk centered and reduces the evaporation of water by the air chamber that is at the widest end. And that's not freshness, it's nutrient preservation. And that's the kind of detail that no one teaches on television, that isn't on the label, that doesn't make it into the 15-minute consultation, but that makes a real, measurable difference in the quality of what you eat. And there is one more detail about storage, the egg that is outside the refrigerator, in the fruit bowl, in that beautiful basket that appears in American film, here in Brazil, with our heat. This is a disaster. Because the ambient temperature accelerates the degradation of the inner membrane of the shell and the oxidation of fats, and an egg stored outside the refrigerator for a week in the Brazilian heat loses a significant amount of lutein and zeaxanthin. Choline also degrades faster, and you eat the egg thinking you are consuming all those nutrients. But most of it is gone, and this is another mistake that cancels out the benefit. And that is so simple to correct. Just put the egg in the fridge as soon as you get home from the fair or market. On the shelf, not at the door, and voila, you've already increased the nutritional value of your egg without spending a penny more. And since I'm talking about practical details, let's talk about the origin of the egg, because the egg is not all the same, and there is a huge difference, measurable in the laboratory, between the farm egg, the one from the chicken that spends its entire life in a cage without seeing sunlight, eating feed based on soy and transgenic corn, and the egg of a free-range chicken, which scratches, which eats insects, which sunbathes, which banishes dust, which expresses the natural behaviors of a chicken. And this difference is in the composition of fats and in the presence of fat-soluble vitamins. An egg from a chicken raised on pasture has up to 3 times more vitamin D, because the chicken that sunbathes synthesizes vitamin D and deposits it in the yolk. It has more omega-3, which is an anti-inflammatory fat that protects the heart and brain, because the chicken that eats insects and vegetables ingests omega-3 and transfers it to the egg, has a much better ratio between omega-6 and omega-3, which is a very important indicator of inflammation, and has more lutein, more zeaxanthin, more choline. Because the chicken that eats varied foods produces a richer egg, and vitamin D is another essential nutrient that most people over the age of 50 are deficient in, because aging skin has less ability to synthesize vitamin D from the sun, and vitamin D participates in more than 200 reactions in the body, regulates the immune system, helps absorb calcium, keeps bones strong, it protects the heart, modulates mood, and vitamin D deficiency is associated with depression, muscle weakness, falls, fractures, recurrent infections, and free-range egg yolk is one of the few relevant food sources of vitamin D. So when you choose a free-range chicken egg, you're making an investment in your bone health, in your immunity, in your mental well-being, and this investment is worth every penny more. And there is also the issue of residues. The farm egg may contain traces of antibiotics that were given to the hen not to get sick in confinement. And these antibiotics, even if in small quantities, accumulate in your body over decades and can affect your intestinal flora. That community of good bacteria that lives in your intestine and is essential for digestion, for immunity, for the production of neurotransmitters, and an unbalanced intestinal flora is associated with obesity, diabetes, depression, autoimmune diseases. So when you choose free-range eggs from a producer who does not use routine antibiotics, you are protecting your intestinal flora. You are protecting your gut-brain axis. You are investing in your health from the inside out. And I'm not saying that you need to buy the most expensive egg in the supermarket. I'm saying that If you can choose an egg from free-range chickens, preferably from a local producer, from the market, from a neighbor who raises chickens, you're making a choice that reverberates in your health in ways you can't even imagine. And if the budget does not allow, the farm egg is still much better than not eating eggs. It is still a source of very high-quality protein, choline, antioxidants, and the right preparation and the right combinations will still bring benefits. So do not use the lack of free-range eggs as an excuse not to eat eggs. Use as a horizon for improvement, something to seek when possible. And now, we're going to get into a field that can transform the quality of your sleep and the health of your brain in the long run. And that field is the habit of eating eggs at night. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because for decades you've been told that eggs are heavy, that eggs at night are bad, that digestion slows down. And none of this holds up when we look at the actual physiology. And I'm going to describe to you a process that happens while you sleep, and that depends directly on nutrients that are in the egg. Your brain doesn't rest during sleep. It works. It activates a cleaning system that was recently discovered and called the glymphatic system. And this system is like a night cleaning team that sweeps up the toxins accumulated during the day. And among these toxins is a protein called beta amyloid, which is the same protein that accumulates in the brains of people with Alzheimer's. And for this glymphatic system to work properly, it needs a favorable chemical environment, and the choline in the egg participates in the production of acetylcholine, which in turn modulates the opening of the channels through which the cleaning liquid circulates, and without enough acetylcholine, these channels do not open properly. The cleaning is incomplete, and the toxins accumulate night after night, and this can contribute to cognitive decline over the years. And in addition to choline, the egg contains tryptophan, which is a precursor amino acid for serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter of well-being, and melatonin is the hormone that regulates the sleep cycle. And when you eat an egg for dinner, you are providing your brain with the raw material to manufacture these two chemical messengers. And this can help initiate sleep more easily and maintain a deeper, more restful sleep. And quality sleep is one of the most neglected pillars of cardiovascular health, because during sleep blood pressure drops, the heart rate slows down, the body repairs itself, and people who sleep poorly have a higher risk of hypertension, heart attack, diabetes, obesity. So improving sleep is improving heart health, and the egg at night can be an ally in this journey. And I want to describe to you what quality sleep is. It's that sleep in which you lie down, turn off in a few minutes, go through the deep phases of sleep where the body regenerates, and then enter the REM phase where the brain processes memories and emotions and wakes up refreshed without waking up at dawn. No rolling around in bed, no having to get up to go to the bathroom multiple times, and the egg's combination of choline and tryptophan can help orchestrate this cycle, especially if you eat a light dinner a few hours before bed and don't eat refined carbs at night, which disrupt melatonin. I had a patient, Mrs. Celeste, 75 years old, who had suffered from insomnia for decades. She slept 2-3 hours a night, and the rest of the night she was awake, distressed, and she had tried everything, tea, medicine, and nothing worked well. And she came for an appointment for another reason, and I asked about dinner, and she told me that at night she only drank tea with toast, because she was afraid of eating heavy and not sleeping. And I explained to her that toast turned into sugar quickly, gave a glucose spike and then a drop, and this drop generated cortisol, the stress hormone, which woke her up at dawn, and that tea and toast was the worst possible dinner for those who have insomnia, and I proposed that she change the toast for 2 boiled eggs, and she was horrified. Doctor, egg at night. That's okay. And I explained the mechanism, the choline, the tryptophan, the stability of blood sugar, and she agreed to try. And the first night she slept 5 hours straight, something that hadn't happened in years. And she called me the next day crying with joy. And after a month she was sleeping 7 hours a night, without medicine. And her mood changed. Her mood changed. Her blood pressure improved. And it all started with 2 hard-boiled eggs for dinner. And this story is no exception. It is the rule when you understand physiology and apply it intelligently. And for those who have diabetes or insulin resistance, the egg at night is particularly interesting because it does not raise glucose, it does not cause insulin peak, it keeps blood sugar stable during the night, and this stability prevents the liver from releasing excess glucose at dawn, a phenomenon called the dawn effect, which makes many people wake up with high glucose and also prevents nocturnal hypoglycemia, which can wake the person up with sweating, tachycardia, and malaise. So the egg at dinner is a metabolic stabilizer, an anchor that keeps the body in balance while you sleep. And the best preparation for the night egg is the boiled or poached one, because they are lighter and easier to digest, and you can accompany it with boiled vegetables, with green leaves, with a drizzle of olive oil, and avoid refined carbohydrates at night. Avoid bread, avoid cookies, avoid very sweet fruits, and if you are hungry, a slice of white cheese or an unsweetened plain yogurt may complement it. But the egg is the star of the dinner, the provider of the nutrients your brain needs for the nightly clean. And I want to nail it here. The egg at night is one of the best-kept secrets of brain longevity, and most people only eat eggs in the morning and miss that window of benefit at night. And this is another mistake that nullifies part of the potential that the egg can offer, and that is as simple to correct as deciding the menu for today's dinner. And now we come to the most damning point of this conversation, where I'm going to reveal the biggest traitor that lurks in seemingly healthy foods and is silently sabotaging everything you do for your health. And that traitor is the cooking oil you use to fry the egg, thinking you're making a neutral or even healthy choice. And I'm talking about soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil. All these oils are rich in omega-6 fats, which in small amounts are essential, but which in excess become an inflammatory poison. And the excess of omega-6 in the modern diet is brutal. The ideal ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 in the human diet should be something around 4:1. But in the modern diet, this ratio reaches 20:1, 30:1, and this massive imbalance inclines the body to chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is the soil where cardiovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, neurodegenerative diseases grow. And the worst thing is that these oils are in everything. In processed foods, in restaurants, in the homes of people who believe that vegetable oil is healthy because the advertising said that it has no cholesterol. And the final irony, the irony that sums up this whole story, is that the egg has cholesterol and protects, and the vegetable oil has no cholesterol and destroys. And this inversion of values is the perfect summary of the betrayal of the system. You have been led to fear the food that contains cholesterol, and to trust the food that ignites, that oxidizes, that is addictive. And with each breakfast with egg fried in vegetable oil, you are canceling out the benefits of the egg and generating an inflammatory load that your body will have to deal with for the rest of the day. And I want to describe the cellular process in detail for you to understand gravity. When vegetable oil is heated beyond the smoke point, which is the temperature at which it starts to break down, the fat molecules break down and form aldehydes. And these aldehydes enter the bloodstream through the gut and through the breath. And once in the blood, they try to bind to other molecules. And one of their favorite targets is LDL, the bad cholesterol. And when an aldehyde binds to an LDL particle, it oxidizes it. And the oxidized LDL is recognized by the immune system as an invader. And the macrophages, which are the defense cells, they swallow the oxidized LDL and become foamy cells. And these foamy cells are deposited on the wall of the arteries and form the plaque. And this plaque grows. And the inflammatory process feeds back more oxidation, more deposition, and the artery narrows. And one day, this plaque can rupture and form a clot that blocks the flow of blood. And that's the heart attack, that's the stroke. And the initial trigger of this whole cascade wasn't the cholesterol in the egg, it was the aldehyde generated by the heating of the vegetable oil. And that aldehyde doesn't show up in routine tests. No one measures aldehyde in the blood. Nobody asks you what oil you fry the egg with. No one connects the dots. And the solution is crystal clear. To prepare egg, use stable fats that do not oxidize easily. Use butter, use lard, use coconut oil, use olive oil over low heat, and if you are going to fry, do it at a controlled temperature, without letting the edge burn, without bursting the yolk, and if possible, prefer the boiled egg, the poached egg, the egg scrambled over low heat, which preserve nutrients and do not generate oxysterols or aldehydes. And there's one more traitor who dresses up as healthy, and that I need to expose here with all the letters. Margarine. Margarine is an industrial chemical made from vegetable oils that have gone through a process called hydrogenation, which distorts the molecular structure of fat and creates trans fats. And trans fats are so harmful that the human body literally doesn't know how to deal with them. They are incorporated into the membranes of cells and make them rigid, dysfunctional. They increase bad cholesterol and decrease good cholesterol. They inflame the endothelium. They are associated with a higher risk of heart attack, stroke, Diabetes, Alzheimer's, and margarine has been promoted for decades as a healthy alternative to butter and eggs. And millions of people started to grease their bread with this industrial yellow block, believing that they were protecting themselves. And the result was an increase in chronic diseases. And margarine is still there, in supermarkets, with packaging that says zero cholesterol. As if this were synonymous with health, and it is not. Zero cholesterol does not mean zero harm. It just means that marketing has found a hook to sell a product that is bad. And butter, which is a natural food which has been around for millennia, which contains fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K2, which contains butyric acid that nourishes the cells of the intestine, which contains conjugated linoleic acid that has anti-inflammatory properties, was demonized along with the egg. And people exchanged the natural for the industrial, thinking that they were evolving and they were regressing. And this is the great inversion that I want you to see with absolute clarity. The natural, when not oxidized, when not intoxicated by industrial processes, tends to be an ally of your health. And the industrialized that screams zero cholesterol on the label tends to be the disguised enemy. And now, I want to take a break from the rhythm to talk directly to you who are listening to me, you who have come this far, you who are paying attention, you who have already understood that the egg is not the villain, that the yolk is a nutritional jewel, that the preparation and combinations make all the difference. I want to ask you for a simple gesture. If this content is making sense to you, if it is clearing up any doubts, if it is bringing peace to a concern that you have been carrying for years, leave your like, subscribe to this channel, and write in the comments the name of your city and how many eggs you usually eat per week. This helps me understand who is being reached by this message and gives me the energy to continue bringing this type of information that has no place in the traditional consultation. And I also want to ask you, before we continue, have you ever stopped to think that the egg is one of the few foods that carry the potential to generate a lifetime? And that nature wouldn't put poison inside such a precious package? Think about it as we move on to the final part of this conversation. And the number that the evidence points to as safe for the vast majority of adults is 2 to 3 whole eggs a day. That's right, 2 to 3 eggs a day. Not a week, not a month, a day. And before you get scared, I'll explain why this number isn't crazy. First, because the cholesterol you eat has a small impact on blood cholesterol for most people. Your liver regulates this, as I have already explained. Second, because the nutrients in the egg, especially choline, phospholipids, lutein, zeaxanthin, monounsaturated fats, have protective effects that counterbalance any small effect that the cholesterol in the egg may have on sensitive individuals. And third, because the cultures that consume the most eggs in the world, such as Japan, have very low rates of cardiovascular disease and very high longevity. And the Japanese consume an average of 1.5 eggs a day, and there the egg is often eaten raw or lightly cooked, preserving all the nutrients, and they have one of the longest-lived and healthiest populations on the planet. So the fear of the egg is not sustained either in physiology or in the observation of real populations. And what spoils people's health is not the egg. It is what they eat together. It is the oil they use to fry. It is the bread. It is the sugar. It is the sedentary lifestyle. It is the chronic stress. And then the blame goes to the egg because it's easier to blame one food than to change an entire system of habits. And within that number of 2 to 3 eggs a day, there is a safety window that you can adjust according to your reality. If you are a lean, active person with normal exams, who does not have insulin resistance, who does not have fatty liver, 3 eggs a day is a perfectly acceptable number, and you can even benefit from all the choline, of all the antioxidants, of all the protein of high biological value that is there. If you are overweight, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you have fatty liver, the ideal is to start with 1 or 2 eggs a day, always whole, and observe how your body responds, and especially remove the flours and sugars that are overloading your liver, because the egg will help. But it doesn't work miracles on its own if the rest of the diet continues to intoxicate you. And this is a message of balance, not extremism. I'm not saying that you should eat a dozen eggs a day. I'm saying that the fear of eating an egg a day is unfounded for the vast majority of people, and that by freeing yourself from this fear, you make room for food that protects, nourishes, sustains, and costs little. And now we are moving towards closure, and I want to speak directly to you who are there, who have come this far, who have dedicated this time to take care of yourself, you who may have spent years afraid of eating eggs, You who may have thrown away hundreds of yolks, you who may have blamed yourself because your cholesterol did not go down despite doing everything you were told, I want you to know that it wasn't your fault. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time, but now you have new information. And with new information, you can make new choices. And the first thing I want you to do from tomorrow is to look at the egg with respect, as someone who looks at a sacred food that nature designed to nourish, and not as someone who looks at a threat. The second thing is to rescue the yolk, whole, without guilt, whether cooked, poached, stirred over low heat with a stable fat, and never fry in vegetable oil until the edge burns. The third thing is to rethink the company of the egg on the plate. If you eat egg with bread, replace the bread with a slice of boiled sweet potato, sautéed vegetables, avocado, green leaves, and if you drink orange juice with it, try replacing it with lemon water or for a sugar-free tea and see how your body responds. The fourth thing is to consider the egg in the evening, at least 2 or 3 times a week, as part of a light dinner, and observe what happens to your sleep and your disposition the next day. The fifth thing is to store the egg in the refrigerator on the middle shelf, away from the door, and if possible, choose eggs from free-range hens. And the sixth thing, and perhaps the most important of all, is to trust your observation. Take the test, eat 2 eggs a day for 2 weeks, repeat your blood tests, pay attention to how you feel, your energy, your memory, your satiety, and let your own body validate that information, because you're the best lab to test what works for you, and no one knows your body better than you do. And the amount that most people can safely eat, as I promised at the beginning, is 2 to 3 whole eggs a day. And that's not a number taken out of thin air. It's what the evidence points to. It's what physiology explains. It's what long-lived populations practice, and if you have any specific conditions, if you have uncontrolled diabetes, if you have genetic hypercholesterolemia, talk to your doctor, get tested, monitor, but don't start from fear, start from information. And the information is that eggs are one of the most complete, most accessible, most wronged foods in the history of nutrition. And I want to tie one last end about glycation, because glycation is the process that hardens your arteries and wrinkles your skin, and it happens when you have sugar left in your blood, and the best way to avoid glycation is not to cut the egg, it's to cut the sugar, it's to cut the white flour, it's to cut the natural juice that turns into liquid fructose, and eat the whole egg, with the yolk, prepared gently, accompanied by real food. And if you do that, you will be giving your body the best chance to age with lucidity, with strength, with dignity. And in closing, I want to ask you for a gesture of care. Share this video with someone you love, with your husband, with your wife, with your brother, with your neighbor, with that friend who keeps counting eggs and throwing away the yolk, not as an act of marketing, but as an act of love. Because when you share information that liberates, you're saying to that person, I care about you. I want you to live longer and better. I want you to get out of the trap of fear and into the terrain of autonomy. And this is the final message that I leave for you. Autonomy over your health is not conquered with fear. It is conquered with knowledge. And knowledge is the only thing that no one can take away from you. And now you know, the egg is not the villain. The villain is the oxidized vegetable oil. It's margarine, it's hidden sugar, it's white flour, it's chronic inflammation. And eggs can be the ally you need to turn this game around. An ally that is in your fridge, waiting to be valued. And always remember, this content is educational. It complements but does not replace the follow-up of your trusted doctor, and decisions about your health should be made in conjunction with a professional who listens to you, who respects you, and who is willing to look at you as a whole human being, and not just as a cholesterol number on an exam sheet, and who this professional is a partner in your journey of autonomy, and not an obstacle. And I stay here, hoping that tomorrow morning you will look at the egg carton in your fridge with different eyes, with the eyes of those who have understood the mechanism, of those who have rescued trust in nature,